This morning.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
The voice of the creative economy.
With Vincent Heeringa.
Vincent Heeringa from Idealog fame, idealog.co.nz. Good morning to you, Vincent.
Good morning, Wammo.
A frosty good morning to you this morning.
Rusty good morning and a very thick-headed good morning. Football fever I'm suffering from.
Did you go watch the game last night?
I did indeed.
What's it like? What's it like watching a full game with the vuvuzela thing going on? Because I haven't experienced that yet.
Well, it just becomes white noise in the end, but what awful things they are. But I'm not really a football fan. I'm not really a soccer fan. I don't think I've ever really fully watched a game. Ordinarily it's such a dull sport, isn't it? Nothing ever happens. But I was just fascinated to see how the Kiwis went, and gosh, what an effort! And woke up the whole house with our screaming and yelling. 10 seconds from the end.
Because you're plugged into this side of things. I mean, is there a spin-off for the All Whites doing well for in the sport, in the soccer? Is there a spin-off for New Zealand?
I doubt there's much spin-off for New Zealand. I do know that they get a payout for making it through to the finals, and then I think mostly the real opportunity is for the individual players and the doors that open because they get to be seen on a world stage.
It's funny you say that. So there's no tangible real spin-off for New Zealand as a country, and yet we do invest a lot of our time in sport, particularly of course rugby. The World Cup that's probably got economic spin-off, but in general. Most of the time, there is no real tangible benefits.
No, that's true. And in fact, most times there's a report on building large stadia or hosting large events such as the Olympics. The accounts always end up in deficit, and the absolute tragic example of that is Greece with the Olympics and the situation that they're in now, where they have borrowed and borrowed and borrowed to host the Olympics, and they're single-handedly bringing down the euro as a result. Not entirely their fault, and not entirely the Olympics, but you've got to say the Olympics hasn't actually helped Greece much at all. But I suppose that's a very pecuniary way of looking at things. Wammo.
It is, but and I just want to make another point about that. It's also very socially disruptive, these big major events as well.
Right. So no parties, no celebrations, eh?
Well, it's not about what I mean is there's the initial setup and the disruption to people's lives and the setup where whether people shifted and moved on. You only have to see what's happening in China. When events happen in China.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
the streets, etc.
And then what happens when the party's over?
Well, I think probably more disruptive is things like APEC, where a whole lot of politicians get paid a lot of money to get together and talk rubbish, and also disrupt the city. And speaking of politicians, I just what I really wanted to talk about today was the how universal the boot is that is being put into politicians over the MPs and Len Brown over the so-called spending scandals that we are seeing writ large as a result of the credit card statements being published. And it just seems to me, Wim, I don't be interested in your views on this, but it seems to me that this has turned into a classic witch hunt, and we are now arguing over whether someone took some nuts in a Moro bar out of the hotel minibar. And I don't know if anyone has been travelling, been away from family, been laid up at night, either missed out on a dinner because you've been working, or but when you're on company business, the company pays for your per diems, which will cover food and maybe the odd movie. And I'm not necessarily defending this choice of movies, but it does seem out of whack with the much larger problems that New Zealand faces to be obsessing about a $250 wine bill or an $800 dinner bill.
And you're absolutely right there. It is a total sideshow. But I guess when you get down to it, if you do really want to concentrate on it, the details are that, the rules are clear. You don't use the card for very much personal expenses or expenses that you can't attribute to doing the job.
I suppose so, but it's the size of it, I suppose. If we were seeing tens of thousands of dollars and building of homes, compare it to, say, the scandal in the UK, where the politicians really have had their snout in the trough, and we're looking at houses, the complete houses being refurbished at the taxpayers' expense. Our scandals are just they're embarrassingly small by comparison.
Yeah, but that's an indication of the general news in New Zealand as well. I mean, everything that happens in New Zealand is comparatively small and tiny to the rest of the world.
Don't seem to be any smaller, though, do they? The level of child abuse, as we've spoken often about our relative economic decline, the state of our health system. These are the things that we should be scandalised by, not by marginal calls on whether a credit card should have been used, and actually, in most cases, paid back.
Well,
what amazes me is that where's the leadership in this? The two political leaders are desperate to castrate their colleagues before the press,
because that's what the media wants.
Yeah, well, I think it's at that kind of tabloid end of the media spectrum, isn't it? It's titillating. It's particularly when there's porn involved, and I'd just like to see a bit of leadership by some people in senior positions to say, let's get some perspective here and focus on the real issues.
Good one, and then perhaps focus on the stuff that really matters that you normally talk about every other week, except you've concentrated on the MP's expenses and wasted everyone's time once again, Vincent.
Absolutely.
So much.
Go the All White.
Cheers. Vincent Heeringa from Idealogue magazine, idealogue.co.nz.